you're wondering like, hey, who just made that second or whatever, feel free to ask. Okay, that's cool. There's no problem there. We're all in this together and we want to get the minutes right.
I see Emily Stainbrook.
Yep, there we go. Melissa Knack.
There's Melissa.
Yeah.
Melissa, I do it to the mayor all the time in council meetings. I'm like, wait, who was the second? It goes so fast sometimes. All right, we are live streaming on YouTube.
All right.
And I would like to record, so just a minute. Chai is coming in right now, so let's bring him in.
All right.
So I am showing 4:30, Abe, and
Okay.
as people pop up in the waiting room, I'll bring them in.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
And I think that at this point, what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have six members. We're at a quorum. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Just FYI to Melissa Mafio, as people come in, just count them as present. And even if they only catch up at the very last minute, that's fine. Just be sure that we record who voted on what items, or rather, if somebody was missing. So that's all we need.
So you're
All
going to
right.
go through the roll call?
Yes, we're going to go through that. That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, by all means. Okay, well, being 4:30, 4:31 now, I will call this meeting to order. And we begin with a roll call. And we're going to start, let me make sure that I do this the right way. First of all, today we do have with us a new managing librarian, and Antoinette Morales Tanner. However, I will say that I will ask her to provide a more complete introduction of herself when she presents her report later in this meeting. So we're just going to do roll calls to begin with. For the rest of us, as I call on you, please give us your name, your position as it relates to our meeting today, and then if you feel like saying it, how long you've been in this capacity. So just to give you a little example, I will start. My name is Abe Martinez. I am the chair of the Lake Stevens Library Board. And while I've been on the board for about 9 years, this is my very first time to be the chair. So that's what I am doing. So next up, Melissa Mafia, well, you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, so I've been on the board for, I think this is the second year, and this is my first meeting as secretary.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Okay, I'm just going to go in random order because of who's where on my screen. So Leanne Balverona, you go ahead.
Hi, I'm Leanne. This is my second time serving on the library board with a few years gap in between these terms. This is my second meeting of my current term, and I'm a member of the library board.
All right, Shaylin.
Hi, everybody. It's Shaylin, and I have been on the library board for, I believe, 16 years.
Current record there. All right. So Lynn is with us tonight. Lynn, you go ahead and introduce yourself.
I have not been on the library board for a year yet, but I will be leaving the community in March to move up to Stanwood. So.
All right. Well, thank you. Emily, you want to go ahead next?
Sure. Emily Stainbrook. I am a library board member, and I think I've been on, I've been on at least 1 year. So this may be my second.
Yeah, probably so. All right. Candace.
Hi, I'm Candace Barlow. I'm a member, and I think I've been on for a year now, about a year.
Yeah. All right. And Helen?
Hi, Helen Taylor. I'm a library board member, and this is my 1 year anniversary.
Oh, congratulations. All right. And Andy, seeing you in your office, first time I've seen that. Go ahead.
I'm Andy Powers, board member for, I don't know, a little bit longer or a little bit shorter than Abe. I think I signed up right after Abe.
So you're coming up on 9 years as well then. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. In official capacity, I'm only going to call on certain people because everybody's face is showing up tonight. So I will ask, first of all, with the mayor and other city people here. So Mayor, would you introduce yourself, as if I hope people know who you are?
Yeah, Brett Gailey, I'm the mayor. Glad to be here and hear the conversation.
All right. Mary?
Mary Dickinson, I'm city council, and thrilled to be here. And I think this is trial by, I don't know what, for Mr. Martinez, our new chairman. Tough to be chair right now, but
Yeah.
I'm so glad to be here and so glad to see all of you, all of you.
All right. Wonderful. I see Russ joined us. So Russ, would you introduce yourself?
Great, thanks, Abe. Russ Wright, Community Development Director for the City of Lake Stevens.
All right. Let me see. I did see, Paul Ryan is with us, and I don't know if you're here as in an official capacity, but as we move towards talking about people who are on Snow Isle, would you like to introduce yourself? Because people may not know you, and both what you used to be and what you're doing now.
Yeah, Paul Ryan, currently serve as a trustee to the Snow Isle Library District. Previously member of the Lake Stevens Library Board, appointed by Mayor John Spencer a few years ago. So happy to be here tonight.
Great to have you. Okay, Chai, you are here.
Yeah, thanks, Abe. Hi, everyone. I'm Chai Ross. My job title these days is Assistant Director of Capital Strategy and Planning for Snow Isle Libraries, which, yes, I paid 50 cents for a big, long title. But I've worked for Snow Isle for 16 years and have known many of you for just about that long. I was the manager of the Lake Stevens Library for about 7 or 8 years during my career as well. But I'm here in that capacity related to capital strategy and planning today.
All right. Seems like all these people who are former librarians. So another former librarian, Lindsey.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsey Hansen. I am now a district manager at Snow Isle Library, supporting 6 of our libraries, including Lake Stevens. And prior to this, I was the Lake Stevens Library manager for about 3 years.
Yeah. Okay. And I think this would be last, but absolutely not least, Antoinette. Introduce yourself briefly. Like I said, when you make your report, you can give us a little more information.
Hi, everyone. I've met some of you already, but I'm Antoinette Morales Tanner. I am the current library manager at the Lake Stevens branch, and I have been here all of about 1 month. So I think I've got the shortest tenure, but it's nice to see all of you tonight, and thank you for having me.
All right. Excellent.
Hey, Abe, I think we might have Council President Steve Ewing on with us as well.
All right.
I just wanted to acknowledge him.
Okay. I guess we've kind of introduced him, but would you like to say anything to introduce yourself?
I don't need to introduce myself. I thank you guys for being here and for all the good work you're doing.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, since it just says Steve, I could be any Steve. So anyway, all right. Excellent. So we're through with that. Next on the agenda, approval of minutes, the minutes for October 21st, 2021. Now, the minutes were distributed to you. Given our tight schedule tonight, we often would take some time for reading these, but as I'm a bit long-winded when I was the secretary, and it could take several minutes for you guys to read those. I don't want to do that. I'm going to trust that you've already looked at it. And I will go ahead and ask if there are any corrections for the minutes. And again, this is for the board to speak up. That's really, they're the only ones to do that. Do we have any corrections? I have a correction, and I can say this because I was the one who wrote it down, and I was the guy who messed up here. So here we go. I noticed on page 2 in the Snow Isle report section, I recorded that there was a $3.2 million state grant. It should have been a $3.1 million state grant. Melissa, if you want to note that, I will pass it along to you as well. I am sorry that I messed up, and I'm also sorry that it wasn't the higher amount, but that's how life goes. So anyway, so any other corrections? Again, this is for the board that I'm asking. Okay, if no further corrections, then the minutes are approved as corrected. So what I'm going to do on here is just offer a little point of information. What we just did, this is new. I told the board members that I was going to try to use Robert's rules a bit more if I could. What we just did was approval by unanimous consent. I offered the board a chance to make some changes. We didn't, so we consented. And there's no need to make a motion, get a second or vote on it. And so with stuff like this in the future, if we can move things along faster, we will. So let's move on to new business. So the first thing, and I listed it here, was I wanted to thank Lynn Myers. While you haven't served a long time on the board, you've been a vocal person here, and I know that you have served with the Friends of the Library and also volunteer in other ways. And we want to thank you very much. Is there anything you want to say? I want to give you an opportunity if you'd like to say something about libraries and your service for the libraries. Please feel free to say so.
You know, I've been on the Friends of the Library Board since 2005. There was one time when Chai and I were the only two members. We got down pretty low on membership for a while. But I love libraries. I read everything on a Kindle. I don't read a book at all anymore. But I like going in, and I like kids. I like little kids. I love to hear their voices in the library and when they're happy. And I wanted to be on the board to represent my age group as opposed to the children. But it's been a great stretch, and thank you, everyone.
All right. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your service. And by the way, when you say anything about your age group, I hope I don't look it, but I'm actually creeping right up there along, so I'm not too far behind. Anyway, so hopefully your age group is represented on the board. With that, there is a new opening on the board, which will happen immediately after this meeting. I should let you know if you are in the public gallery there and you would like to be on the board, or if you know of somebody that's already listed. So Kelly has already put it on the website. You can find listings for all sorts of volunteer opportunities on boards and commissions through the city. All you do is go to the city website, you go to the homepage, look for latest news section, and it's there. All right. Next agenda item is change to the library bylaws, library board bylaws. Now, I'm hoping that this will give us a chance to practice doing a little business by motion and then discussion. And I have mentioned this to you in email, but just a point of information, if you need to see the original bylaws, you're going to find them in the on page 7 of the meeting packet. But I will read both the original and the proposed changes, and I will also try, notice the word try, and add the text to the comments section of Zoom for those who need to see it. So, Shaylin, perhaps you have some thought on this. Is there anything you might like to offer?
Yes, I would. I would like to say, I want to make a motion that the Lake Stevens Library Board change its bylaws to better reflect the time and manner of our meetings.
Wonderful. Well said. I wonder how you came up with that. So, yes, that was a setup thing that we did. I admit it right now, but I want folks to understand that this will be kind of the way that we do it. I just realized there isn't a chat thing. Is that right, Kelly? We don't have chat on this because of the...
We do not have chat, and that's a
okay.
Thing.
Okay, so I'll just...
For public records, yeah.
Let me just read that one more time. I will read it at the end, but Shaylin just said, I make a motion that Lake Stevens Library Board change its bylaws to better reflect the time and manner of our meetings. I'm going to go ahead and offer, would any one of the board members like to second that?
I'll second it.
All right, there we go. So Andy seconded. You got that there, Alyssa? Shaylin made that motion and he's seconding. And unless there is some objection, I actually would like to tackle the second change first. This was one that was offered to us actually from the Snow Isle Library staff, where they said in the line, let's see, the current wording is on our bylaws, one of the professional librarians of the Snow Isle Library staff and the Lake Stevens Managing Library will attend the board meetings in an advisory capacity. Again, that original language is there for you in the packet if you want to see it. The proposed change, and this is one I wrote, so I'm not saying it's the absolute, but I think it covers the waterfront. The managing librarian, comma, or other designated representative of Snow Isle libraries will attend the board meetings in an advisory capacity. Let me just give you an idea of why I said it that way. Is just that in general, if the managing librarian can't make it, we've always been happy to have another designated representative of Snow Isle be there, and that's always worked for us. I see no reason why not. So this is actually a we'll call it a subsidiary motion, but I'd like to, unless there's some disagreement with that wording for any particular reason, I'd like to just assume that we can move forward and vote on both. So any reason why anybody thinks that's not good wording? No? Okay. So let's go to the wording of the more important one that deals with us. The opening line of our current bylaws say regular meetings of the library board will be held quarterly, January, April, July, and October on the third Thursday at 4:30 p.m. in the Lake Stevens Community Meeting Room. And as I've already explained to you, that Lake Stevens Community Meeting Room no longer exists, and it doesn't matter since we meet on Zoom anyway. So we are not fulfilling our bylaws. So I propose this change, that we say regular meetings of the library board will be held quarterly, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to move forward. In a Lake Stevens community meeting space reserved for the board prior to the meeting, because I don't know where we might meet once we're back to meeting face-to-face. So that's period. If circumstances require it, comma, or a quorum of board members request it, comma, the meeting may be held via teleconference using an electronic platform provided and hosted by the city of Lake Stevens, such as we are right now. Notice of details for each meeting will be delivered via email to all board members and posted for the public by the city at least 1 week before the meeting. That's a change as well. It's basically what we're doing right now. That's my proposed change. I will mention Helen Taylor offered something, and I thank her for this, to add a line. And this would be proposed change version number 2 that I think might be a consideration. She said that the meeting space reserved for the board prior to the meeting with an option for remote participation, comma, if requested, period. What that means would just be that even after we're past COVID and we're all meeting face-to-face, if a board member requests an option to meet remotely, that we do that and that it's written into our bylaws. I will tell you that as of right now, that's not an issue because obviously we're meeting this way. And even after we're back, such as the city council is, the governor's mandate says you still have to offer remote participation for the public. And we will continue to do that until that mandate is lifted. I was just talking with Kelly about this. So in a way, it's not necessary, but I understand why we might want to put it in. Is there any other discussion about pro or con about, frankly, that thing about if a person requests it, that we will make provision for remote participation? Anybody want to speak on that?
Yes, I'd like to provide point of information on that as well. As you mentioned, it is mandated currently, but if that mandate is lifted, we will no longer be required to do that. However, I believe it's been very helpful for accessibility. I noticed today we have 38 participants, which is the most participants I have seen since being on the board. Of course, it has only been a year, but I know that for someone like me who has young children, it allows me to participate fully for the entire duration. I imagine other community members in a similar situation or who may have transportation issues also be able to participate more fully at the duration of the meeting. So I think in line with our mandate to serve and to be able to welcome the community into our meetings, it will be no harm to actually have this as a standing part of the bylaws.
All right. Anybody else want to speak on that? The only question I would have would just be really for the city. And since we are discussing this, even though you can't argue for or against, I would like to ask Kelly, the mayor, anybody else serving on the city services here, that is that going to be a problem to administrate that? In other words, if we're assuming we meet in some public space, somebody is going to have to host that, and we can't do that privately because I don't think legally we could do it. Is that going to be a problem? Nope, I'm seeing shaking head.
So anyway, yeah, I'm
okay. Well, go ahead.
It is not. I don't believe it'll be a problem. Mayor, I don't know if you had thoughts about this. Right now, the mill is the best place for that because we're doing our hybrid council meetings there. And that Sawyer's room is really the best equipped for that, but we can make it work wherever we need to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask a question regarding that. If we host and do a live stream of our meetings, are they then recorded automatically and available as a public records? If we do not host it virtually, there's not a automatic recording of it necessarily, except for the notes that are taken by a secretary, correct? And submitted. I want to make sure everyone's really clear on this.
You bring up a good question, Shaylin. We haven't tried that before, recording in that room. If you're not doing it via Zoom and you're just recording an in-person meeting, I'd have to check with our IT to be sure, but we're capable of that. But probably safe to assume that no, there would not be a video feed, but I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm not clear.
Okay, I see that Mary has her hand raised. Mary?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt this discussion, but Senator Levick was here momentarily and he has to go off to another meeting, but he does want to come back. He wanted you all to know that he came and he's back.
All right, well, wonderful. Well, thank him for that. And hopefully he can be back during the, I'm sure there's some other discussion besides this that he was more interested in. Well, given go ahead, I'm sorry, Kelly.
No, I'm thinking about it further. I think we could still live stream on YouTube from that meeting room and still have that video on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
Maybe it's not the Zoom setting the way we're seeing it right now. I think it's doable.
Okay.
I guess if we can have if we're still in the discussion phase, I'd just like to say that, going forward forever without a time limit on it, I don't know that I want always to have a video recording of our library board meetings accessible for the public, because we have members who can't necessarily attend. I think it's wonderful that we have people being able to watch and participate in this, but I don't know that I necessarily am in favor of these being recorded and available forever in that way. And I understand that people can't always make a library board meeting, and that's why we have excused absences, and that certainly does happen. So I guess I'd like to make sure that we're considering those pieces before we move forward.
That's good. So you know what? I think that we're, as a subsidiary motion, Option 2 with the accessibility part there, if requested. And now this, by the way, I want to be clear that while that could be for the public, the way that it is worded right now is that a board member would request remote participation. That's the reason why it would be there. It's not written in a way that says, other accessibility. We are doing our due diligence simply by meeting and then making the minutes available. That's what we're required to do, and it's open to the public. We've never, it's always been open to the public, but we're not required to go way above and beyond. So I just want to say that this is meant for board members if they cannot be there. And Helen, you're shaking your head, so I assume, that's what you intended.
Another point of inquiry, if permitted, is how often are the bylaws reviewed and changed, to Shaylin's question, and also point of clarification that the proposed changes do not actually mention recording. So we're under no mandate to record, even if we do have a remote participation option.
Good point. Very good point.
I guess I would like clarification if automatically having a meeting via Zoom or something like that necessitates a recording. I'm asking the city if that's in fact what automatically happens. And certainly, the point of it being in the bylaws and how often that's reviewed is a good one also. Thank you.
Yeah. I obviously can't answer the one about the recording. At this point, I would not either add or specifically keep out any mention of recording. I think what we're doing right now is out of necessity. We kind of fell into it, and none of us thought or knew what this was going to happen. So I'm okay with that. But going forward, I would like for that to be a little more clear.
Abe, can I mention just one more thing? And I realize this is I'm not a library board member, but I just wanted to offer this. Right now, it's a requirement to have a virtual way to participate. And I think until the governor lifts that mandate, really there's not a choice in the matter. We do have to have this virtual option, and people have to have a choice to be able to come in person if you decide to do that, or attend virtually. I'd suggest maybe when the governor lifts that, to then take a look at this and decide how you want to deal with remote participation going forward.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So to your point, Helen, we actually can change this every meeting if we wanted to, but it just takes up time, as you can tell. So the last time we did it was, what was it, 2008? I think, Leanne, when you were last on, because you signed off on
2016.
2016. I'm sorry. Yeah, 2000. I wasn't living here in 2008. What was that? We joined. So okay. Nevertheless, yes, 2016 was the last time we changed our bylaws, but we can do so. So long as we all vote on this, we're okay. I don't want to do that too often if we can help it. How about this? For the time being, I can go with either one, but it's really not an issue. Is it okay we go with version number 1, which does not include that there, Helen, with the provision that as the mandate changes, we take this up again once we know better what the law is and what we're, especially with regard to recordings and such. Does that sound good?
If we actually put the text of that provision in, yes.
Okay, so I'm sorry, in other words, you want that in version 2, the one that you requested. I'm saying
yes, no, I'm saying we can go with version 1 if we say this will be reviewed if and when the mandate governing virtual participation is lifted.
Okay. That's a little bit too, what do I want to say, circumstantial for me. I would rather go with version 2 if we're going to do it. And if we can't make it work, then we'll, since we don't have to record it, and that seems to be the main sticking point there, Shaylin. Mine was more of a technical question. If we don't have the personnel to do it, I don't want to commit ourselves on, in our bylaws to doing this. So, but if this is a sticking point or anything else, let me put it to a vote. Okay. I think we already have the change number 2 is essentially we all agree to that. So what we're voting on now is really change. Would you like all in favor of change number 1, which opens it up, to where we're doing like we are now? All in favor, say aye, raise your hand. That would probably be the easier way. Okay, we're talking board members here. All right. And I'm going to say aye on that one, that version. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. What do we, yeah, you're, okay, so what we need to do, sorry, we need to vote up or down on whether we're okay with version number 1, and then we'll see if we're okay with version number 2. Okay, that's how we'll do it. So everybody can vote for version number 1 if we like it, and only those who vote for number 2 can do that. So all in favor of version number 1 and taking at least that first step, say aye.
Sorry, I don't know what version.
Okay, I'm sorry. Shall I read it back to you? Okay, version number 1, it says, regular meetings of the library board will be held quarterly. You know what I'm saying there, in a Lake Stevens community meeting space reserved for the board prior to the meeting. If circumstances require it or a quorum of board members request it, the meeting may be held via teleconference using an electronic platform provided and hosted by the city of Lake Stevens. The rest of it is the same as it was before. That's the main thing. It is just if circumstances require it, like now, or a quorum of board members request it, the meeting can be held by a teleconference, just as we are now. Okay, so that's the only change, is that we can continue to do this if a quorum decides that we will do that. Okay, all in favor of that change, say aye. Yep, aye, okay.
Aye.
Aye, all right, anybody, do you have that, Melissa? I think is that unanimous? I don't know.
No, it's not unanimous.
Not, okay, all right. So Helen is nay, Candace?
Sorry, are we choosing between 1 and 2?
No,
So
I'm
2
saying
has-
let's accept at least 1 and then we will decide on number 2. Okay, so.
Okay, sure.
Sure, if we're accepting at least 1, yes.
Okay, there we go. We're unanimous on 1. All right, now for version number 2, this takes it up a step because it adds a line to it. And that line, it says, on the first line, regular meetings will be in a Lake Stevens community meeting space reserved for the board prior to the meeting with an option for remote participation if requested. All right. The rest of it is the same as the previous one. So it's just an option for remote participation if requested. All in favor, say aye. Okay, we've got,
Aye.
Okay. I'm going to say aye on this one. All right. So we have the ayes and any nays. Let's have that. Who would that be? That would be Shaylin. And I'm sorry, is that Lynn? Lynn. Melissa, did you record yourself? You can record yourself however you like, but it'll be public eventually. Don't worry. Okay, did you get those? And by the way, you don't have to list names, Melissa. We just need to know the numbers.
Okay. I was a yay.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, so given that, I didn't write this down exactly, but we are what we have now is that the original motion was that the Lake Stevens Library Board change its bylaws to better reflect the time and manner of our meetings. We have voted, the majority has voted for version number 2 of that, which will be recorded and passed along to the secretary. And that being the case, we'll move on to reports. We begin with Melissa Knack and our friends.
Hi,
Melissa?
everyone. It's good to see so many people here tonight. I don't think I've ever seen it this big. So I'm Melissa Knack. I'm president of the Friends Group, for those that don't know. I'm going to try and make this pretty quick because I know we've got a lot to talk about tonight. With Lynn stepping down from your board, she also stepped down from our board. And we have a new vice president, that's James Harmon. We're really happy to have him on board, and he's really helping us with public outreach right now. And we're just thrilled to have him. It's great. We do have our book nook up and running again at the library. We did have to stop taking donations because we don't have space right now to put the books. Our storage unit's getting really full. We have hopes to start doing a quarterly book sale in the meeting room when it's allowed. I'm just waiting to hear more about that. And once we hear more, we'll start doing some planning on that. Our hope, we really don't know how much we could bring in on those book sales, for a weekend. Our hope is between $500 and $1,000, but we won't know until we do one. So hopefully sometime I'll have a report on that for you.
All right.
The Advent book sales ended up bringing in just over $2,000, which is comparable to a small Aquafest year or a really good Dickens Fair year. So we're going to continue with the Advent book sales next year. We will do some changes because, first time you learn a lot, and we learned a lot. We're gonna do a good job next year, this year. Oh my gosh. So we did end the year in the red this year. We were in the red $6,285.01. And that really just has to do with the $10,000 grant that we gave the library for the children's area. That was one of our CDs that we pulled, it wasn't on our budget sheet. The money was there. We still have plenty of money. But, we spent our money, which is good. We need to do that. Right now, the library is only asking us to support summer reading. They're asking for $1,200 to support summer reading each year. And that's for the prize books because those cannot be, Snow Isle can't spend money on giveaways. So we're spending that money for them. We have a purpose still, yay. We'll still have to pay for our storage unit and our regular business things that we have to do. But I feel confident we're going to be able to make this money for the library, and we're going to be just fine. And we're ready to support anything we need to support here in the future when it comes to a new building. So I'm going to go ahead and say thank you, and you guys have a good night.
All right. Thank you so much, Melissa. All
You're
right.
welcome.
All right. Have a good evening. All right. Well, that being the case, let's move on then to our managing librarian, brand new managing librarian, Antoinette Morales Tanner. And as I mentioned, if you take just a moment and tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then whatever you have for us to share.
Hi, everyone. As I mentioned, I've been at Snow Isle for about a month and in Washington for just a few days longer than that. Prior to this, I worked at a city branch library in Southern California. I was the managing librarian there and oversaw public programming, all of our IT stuff, outreach, collections, pretty much everything forward-facing, everything public-facing. We served a community of about 95,000 folks in Southern California, and my husband and I and our two dogs just moved up here. It's been kind of our dream. My husband grew up in Spokane, and so it's been it was originally our 5-year goal to get back. It turned into a 20-year goal, but we're really happy to be here, especially now that the snow has cleared. So it's just been so great. The Lake Stevens community has been so welcoming, and it's been really wonderful just to get to know our customers, to talk to them, to see how much they enjoy the light installation that the Friends have given us. It really is just a wonderful community, and I feel very lucky to be a part of it. I do have a report here. I had a few things on my report, but I'm going to shorten it up because I know that we've got some other things to talk about tonight. But a couple of things that I really wanted to highlight for you about what's going on in the library. First is our third graders read together program. We're in sort of an interim year this year as we're replanning how we want that program to move forward in the future. But this year, we've got 3 Lake Stevens elementary schools, Highland, Hillcrest, and Skyline Elementary, with 13 classrooms participating, 13 third grade classrooms. Each classroom receives classroom copies of 2 books. And then what Snow Isle has done has put together teacher packets. We all know how overworked our teachers are right now. And what Snow Isle is doing is really incredible in providing teacher resources, lesson plans, vocabulary lists. And I think the best part is a live author event. You know, I still remember when we had authors come to my third grade class, at like, even now as an adult, it's such a special moment. And I just feel so excited that Snow Isle can bring that to those students. I think it's going to be really memorable for them to read the book and then be able to have that Q&A with the author. We are still settling into our building space, and one of the things that we are able to feature is an artist exhibit, which is above our teen shelves. I don't know if any of y'all have had a chance to come out and see it, but for January and February, we've partnered with Pause with Cause. They actually are they went into Cavallero Mid-High School and they worked with 8th graders there and had the 8th graders draw, paint, create portraits of adoptable shelter pets. Those are all on display. We've got 35 of them at the library. Each one has a QR code that you can scan that takes you to a video of the shelter pet and the artist. We've had so many families come in and take a picture next to their portrait of the animal that they created. And you know, watch their video and stuff like that. It's been really wonderful to have that interactive element, and that local connection I think is just so fun. We're really continuing to offer services and you know, looking forward to planning spring and summer programming for everyone. So with that, I'll wrap it up and I'll hand it off to Chai for an update on progress towards our new library.
You can go ahead anytime, Chai.
Great, thanks, Abe. Just giving you a moment there, and yeah, thanks, Antoinette. Welcome, and also want to acknowledge Melissa's update earlier. That partnership with the Friends has always been amazing, and the help in that new temporary library space, I think everyone who visits can see. So I've been really excited and really looking forward to being able to bring this update to the board tonight, as we've been working on it over the last couple of months here. In very specific terms, this is a point we've been working towards for the last year and a half with this refocus on our process towards a new library. But as along with many of you, I personally have been working on that subject for a lot longer. So that's a part of my excitement as well, is that kind of an investment. But that point we're at today, what I'm here to update you on is the progress with our current process and the next steps we're looking at in these most recent efforts. And you know, what I'm excited to report are efforts that are beginning to come to fruition here. You know, I do want to acknowledge that, and as you all certainly know by now, there has been some uncertainty introduced this week to that, and that will need to be addressed. But my focus here tonight, it remains on updating you on the current status of Snow Isle's efforts towards funding and building a new library with the Lake Stevens community. So you have the written report I provided ahead of time. You know, I wanted to do that for just this reason, that I didn't want to come here and read that to you, and I wanted you to have it for reference and be able to be prepared. But I am going to do a quick recap here of the main points, and it really leads off with what was, you know, one of the biggest developments and most exciting things that happened for us over the last year, which was Snow Isle's success in securing with the support of Senator John Lovick, who we owe a note of thanks to related to this, but securing those 3.1 million in state grant funds towards construction of a library. Abe, you may have gotten that 3.2 million because we have already spent 150,000 in state funds on the process so far. So we may have summarized and you might have gotten it right. And that's the number we said last week in total. But what we're moving forward with is that $3.1 million number. Now that funding does come with a matching fund requirement. And the thing that I think is a little bit of the news item that it's a development is that Snow Isle Libraries is committed to either securing or providing those matching funds and being able to contract with the state for that money and move forward with investing it in the Lake Stevens community. And with that foundation of funding, we have been planning towards and are prepared to begin site preparations this year on the property that the library district owns in the Chapel Hill neighborhood. Our priority work for this year is that, and in addition, in parallel, working with the community and the city and other partners to secure the remaining funding needed to build that new larger library. All of this is actually not necessarily just isolated to Lake Stevens as far as Snow Isle's approach to capital funding. We're beginning to approach funding our capital projects, whether those are remodel improvements or new construction like we're looking at in Lake Stevens, approaching those in a bit of a different way than we have in the past. Our priority is to secure additional grant funding, to have capital campaigns, the use of some regular levy funds, and there are other sources out there as well, but all in the aim of reducing a reliance on local public bond elections, which is how you've seen a number of Snow Isle libraries built in the past. So starting with that funding that is already secured as a foundation, we're confident of being able to pursue further alternate funding sources. And our goal is to do that with no bond election for a new library. And again, we would expect with the ability to move forward with those plans to be able to start site preparation work this year. Our library district, I certainly do personally, and Snow Isle Libraries overall really appreciates this joint exploratory process we've been involved in with the city on that civic center concept. And feel like we've been engaged in that process in a good faith effort over the past year plus to work together towards the goals for the community. And we remain interested in continuing the partnership with the city. That kind of collaborative work to develop on adjacent properties continues to make a lot of sense to us. But with this state funding that's secured and that needs to be used on the 2021 to 2023 timeline, that partnership or cooperation does need to happen in a way that the library can move forward with development this year. We've been especially appreciative of input from the community. It's been critical throughout this process, whether it's been, building those site proposals or other information we've gleaned. And we look forward to that being a continuing conversation with the community as we move forward with plans this year. It's just such an exciting point. We're just really thrilled to be able to reach a point that we can see our way through to beginning to build that new library. And those of you again I've worked with for years on that know that that's a little bit of a personal message, not just on behalf of the outfit I work for. This has been a long-standing community goal, and seeing it begin to come into focus and start to be a potential reality is just I keep saying the word, but it's very exciting. But as I conclude and wrap it up here, I think it's fair that I do need to acknowledge that the city has come forward this week with the proposal to de-annex from Snow Isle Libraries and to pay to privatize library services. We've seen that message has gone out and a statement has been made regarding that. That's new information to us this week. We are just beginning to look at and review that statement and what that information means. And we look forward to an opportunity to provide more information related to that in the future in relation to that proposal. But I do feel comfortable tonight saying that Snow Isle Library's intent is to continue to serve the Lake Stevens community. And so while, I mean, it's also honest and fair to say, there's some disappointment to hear about this potential change in approach to what has been a really collaborative process so far from our point of view, with some shared goals for the community, and one in which Snow Isle Libraries has over the past year invested well over $500,000 in work both on the temporary library and the Civic Center process, and the fact that we remain poised to continue and increase that investment as we move into 2022. But I imagine there is a lot still to be reviewed, and we look forward to the opportunity to look that over and provide additional information. I can also imagine there's a lot of conversation and interest, and I'm happy to answer questions tonight. Though I'm happy to do that now or wait till later. Abe, I'll look to your lead on that.
Okay, well,
thank you.
First of all, I just jump in before anybody else would. I want to say thank you, Chai. You and I go a ways back from the very early days, obviously, when you were the managing librarian in Lake Stevens. And so when I first came on the board. So I want to thank you for your report. I do have what you could say a point of clarity or a point of order, depending on how you want to see this. A new library in Lake Stevens is obviously a big deal, and it's going to require some big decision making from a lot of people. So if he's open to it, and he's already said he is, Chai can answer some questions of clarification. However, we will not open debate as to what to do about this information until a little later, when we've been presented, when we can make a motion to consider any kind of action that we might take as a result. And the action is limited. I'll explain more about that later. But I think it's important that we hear from everybody who came prepared to talk about the new library, and that we understand the full implications of what they're saying before we act. So that being said, board members, if you have questions of clarification, I will allow Chai to take his time and answer those. And I see that Helen is asking. So Helen, go right ahead.
Thank you. My point of inquiry is about the matching funds, and if that is a one-to-one match. And if so, are you saying that Snow Isle is actually committing to fund 6.2 million for the new library?
Helen, that is a one-to-one match. There are some fine point details in the background, but it's right around $6 million of funding that is secured to start with this year. Yes.
That's terrific. And then my second question is, you mentioned about the timeline, and just to clarify, if the funds are not expended or there is not a plan to expend those funds within the timeline, would we lose those funds?
So those funds are provided in the state biennial budget. So that's a 21 to 23 budget. That is the timeline that the state would like to see those funds presented on. There are a lot of mechanisms related to this, so that's not an absolute, but that is the intent of the legislation. That's the preference of the state, and it's something we're fully prepared to be able to do.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
You're welcome.
All right, Melissa.
So I have a question. So I think when we were all talking about the whole Civic Center, I think the total amount was around 20 million total, roughly, I guess. For the library piece that you're speaking on, the contribution that you're going to match, are you going off the 20 million? I would think you're just focusing on the library part of it. And if so, what number are you estimating for the library building itself?
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. The state funding itself by law can only be spent on construction of a library. As I mentioned, we continue to be really interested in that civic center concept and want to work in partnership. We'd be happy to do it as a joint development, but that funding would have to go to just the library part of that development. The estimates provided through Stowe Development's exploratory process for the library portion is 14 million. Using that $14 million for I believe it was 15,000 and something square foot library. Using that same methodology and having those numbers re-examined, the funding we have today would build a 5,000 square foot library, and that's a larger building than currently houses the temporary library.
Okay, thank you.
So just want to be sure. So you're talking about working. Well, this is probably not fair. I jumped in. Sorry, Shaylin, you were next. I saw your hand up next. So you go ahead.
I believe Chai answered it actually, was the size of what the building that you're talking about with these funds. So we have reduced the size quite a bit from the original, from what we originally talked about, from what the community input, those pieces. So if, I guess, is that where we're at now, is 5,000 square feet?
No, I apologize for creating that misperception if I did, Shaylin. That is just to give an idea of the stage we're at in pursuing funding. We fully intend, as I mentioned, a top priority for Snow Isle for work in Lake Stevens this year is to pursue additional funding. We're currently pursuing additional state funding. We're pursuing some federal funding. We would hope that a capital campaign could be a part of this. A part of our engagement and conversation with the community over the next year would be determining what that design development, what the details of a library would be. And I would anticipate a part of that conversation would be the eventual size of a library. There's not a straightforward answer right now to what's the total cost. And I was just trying to give a range or an idea that what is in that proposal you can go and look at that's Stowe finalized as a part of the city and the library district's collaborative process there was a $14 million price tag. To give us an idea of where we're at, we reworked, had those numbers reworked, but using the same methodology that we're at the point of 5,000, and there's a range there in between that's yet to be determined. That's going to be based on the community that would be based on the community conversation and those further efforts to secure additional funding.
Go ahead, Melissa.
I'm sorry, just to follow up on that point. So like today, if we all said, yes, go ahead, you've got $6.1 million. You could build a 5,000 square foot library for us on that piece. Is that what you're saying? I was just trying to clarify.
Based on the estimates done by Stowe Development, that is the case. We would need to, take those next design development steps in a process like that. Those are estimates, but done by that professional developer that the city and ourselves identified to hire to provide them. But they are estimates. But it just gives you a range and idea of where we're at. And with that pathway forward, we are in a very strong position to pursue more, to secure more than this. But I can't come here and tell you we have money that we don't have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The question then related to that is, though, the email that I received a couple of days ago was like, we're excited to break ground, we're moving. And it seems like we don't know the size, we don't know the amount, we don't know how it's going to fit within the scope of what was agreed to with public comment before. So I'm a little bit confused on that. I just point of clarification, I'm not arguing or anything like that, because this is not a time for any of that. But am I right that essentially there is no budget, there is no plan, there's a commitment to move forward? I mean, you can break ground, I suppose, with what's there, but the additional funding isn't there to match the 3.1 million. So I'm not sure I understand how this works.
We do have the additional funding to match the 3.1 million, Abe. We will either secure it through those avenues I was just mentioning, or Snow Isle will provide it out of existing funds.
Okay.
And the plan is this year, we would start site preparations. So that is on site doing construction. That is with a phased project approach that allows us to take advantage of the state funds that are on this timeline to move that development forward while we continue to explore with the community the final details, as well as the additional funding that we can secure this year. So there's not a final set of drawings because, you know, we haven't taken that design development step. And our hope, plan, and intent had been that that step would be in cooperation with the city, that it could continue to be a part of a unified vision for that property in Chapel Hill. But that first phase of the project would be site preparations. It would be many of those steps you've seen mentioned in that civic center process that have to do with getting the land ready for construction. And, you know, we've got enough to move beyond that, and in parallel would be pursuing the remaining amount to get to a fixed budget.
Okay. All right, good. Other questions before we move forward? All right. Well, then, that being the case, we will accept the report from Chai. We thank you very much for that. And now we have a report from the city. And I will say the same point of order here. If the mayor is open to it after he does his presentation, we can allow for questions of clarification. And after he is done, someone then can make a motion to consider some action that we might take as a result from there. So with that, I assume it's Mayor Gailey that's going to be speaking to us. Although if there are other folks from the city that have comments, it's the city report, so go right ahead.
Yeah, hey, why don't we first of all, Russ or Kelly or Mary, if you have something before I go into my part, I think that'd probably be most appropriate. Do either three of you have anything?
I do not
have any comments tonight for the group.
Okay, Mary?
Of course I do. So first of all, the 5,000 square feet is, I would say we probably all would maybe possibly agree is too small, but I see that as a beginning. One of the things I'm concerned about is the people of Lake Stevens, and they voted for Snow Isle in 2008. They supported Snow Isle as representing our city. And Lake Stevens people really, really love their library, but they go to other libraries because ours is so small. And as we grow, we're going to need a bigger library. Stowe developers did an amazing, amazing job and came up with a hybrid, I always forget that word, a hybrid design that echoed what the people wanted, what the city wants, and what the people wanted for the library. And I just love that. So I would just love to see us work together on this Chapel Hill effort. And because right now, this is what we need. The people, I volunteered in the food bank today. There's a lot of people in need. And I was down at the library today and watching the kids play down there and just looking around. It's a wonderful place, but it's way, way too small. And 5,000 square feet will probably also be too small. I really love the hybrid design and I hope we can come back together, stay together, and do the best for Lake Stevens and for the people that live here. And that's all I have to say.
All right.
Great, Mary. Hey, well, let's kick this off. I first of all do want to say I totally appreciate the work of Snow Isle. They provide great services for our community. I do love the partnership with them. But what I'm here to do tonight is to show you some numbers and my concerns and a possible plan forward that's different, and to create that conversation of a different possibility. So I'm going to share a screen with you, but apparently I can't, Kelly. Can you help me out?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Mayor. I thought that I had turned that on.
You're good this time. This time I'll forgive you.
Oh, this time. Okay. One more pass. Try it now.
Okay. All right, let's do it. So.
Okay.
Can everybody see that? So just to give a little history on the process, I just want to make sure, can everybody see that slide?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So a little history, roughly a year and a half ago, City and Snow Isle contracted with Stowe Development to look into the civic campus idea. And we've been working hard on that process, as Councilmember Dickinson said, and it's been a good process. What it's come down to at the last discussion that I've had with Snow Isle was in November with Director Lois and Chai. And at that time, the decision was made that we would take this to the voters for a bond this coming November, so November of 22. So that was the last discussion I've had with Snow Isle as far as what this civic campus is going to look like. So this new idea of not going to a bond is surprising to me. And for transparency's sake, China and I had a discussion on Tuesday. I presented him these numbers, and at that time I learned that of this new 5,000 square foot library going up this summer. So let me show a couple numbers. So as we were looking at this bond, I was very concerned about the bond because it equals approximately 35 cents a thousand that we would be asking the voters to fund this new civic campus. And we all know that under our current situation of just being really overtaxed in our community, the 35 cents was going to be a lot of money. So I did some deeper digging into what the numbers really look like. So if you look at on the left, you see the current situation of the Snow Isle Library levy is 42 cents a thousand. The City of Lake Stevens current property assessed valuation is $6 billion. So that equals $2.4 million a year that Snow Isle takes out of our community for library services. They're currently in a 4,700 square foot facility that's provided by the city. Now, a couple months ago, month and a half ago, I started to ask the questions of how much money does Snow Isle actually spend in the city of Lake Stevens? And it was a very difficult, hard to understand discussion or discussion of, and I'll post what I was given tomorrow on our website so everyone can take a look at it. But essentially, being generous with the numbers, I think Snow Isle might spend $1 million on library services in the city of Lake Stevens, which is fine. But my concern is that other $1.4 million that's leaving our community and not being spent here. So when I look at that $1.4 million and I look at this civic campus that we are looking at building, it's roughly a $30 million project. It's 36,000 square feet. And that's based upon 20,000 square feet of city services and 16,000 square feet of a library. So again, we were going to go ask 35 cents a thousand to do this project. So when I look at those numbers, I get really concerned about that $1.4 million. And so, so then when we look at that bond proposal, that's roughly it's about $1.5 to $1.9 million to do this civic campus project. And when I see $1.4 million leaving the city, that could be applied to that $1.9 million project money. So those are just my concerns there, that we have all this money leaving our city and it's not going towards the civic center project like it should be. So I think that if one of the options that we could do, and this would be an idea that I have, is that we take it to the voters. It would be an August vote. And the idea would be there would be a vote to separate from Snow Isle. And then there would be a vote to up the city levy by 42 cents a thousand so that we can do the civic campus idea. And then I would turn around and immediately do a request for proposal, because what this ultimately does is we've got to control the costs of our library. And so if we can put out for a request for proposal for library services within the city, keep it under $1 million, then what that does is it opens up the opportunity for Snow Isle to put in a bid on the RFP. You could see the city of Everett's library put in for it. You could see private companies put in for it. It just opens up the ability for the city to control those costs of what a library costs inside the city. And then it helps us also reallocate that $1.4 million to actually building this building so that we can have a nice city hall, a nice library. I think that we can do some senior center space in there as well as community space. There's some second and third order effects that happened as well in doing this, and that is that we end up moving city services out of its current location, which is down in North Cove Park, and that would provide us much parking, as we would create a parking lot down there so that we can create some parking downstairs that's much needed. And then we could also create some additional commercial office space by selling or leasing out the current location where the library is at. And possibly the sewer district building as well, because the sewer district is planning on being a part of this project as well. So those are the numbers. That's where I'm at on this. I know there's a lot of concern about privatization. The reality of it is it's an RFP. Anybody could put in for it, to include Snow Isle. But as mayor, I think I've got to be wary of how much money is leaving our city and being able to control the cost of library. I want a library. I think it's a great opportunity to maybe look at other library options that provide not only the traditional book services, but other experience-based options as well. So with that, I will open up for questions.
Do you want to leave that slide up, or?
I can, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I don't, it's up, I don't know. I may be easier. Go ahead.
So Abe, tomorrow there will be a link on the website, on our city website. It'll have this slide as well as a couple other reference pieces as well.
Okay, all right.
Helen, did you have a question?
Yeah, if you're open to questions. Again, these are questions for clarity. This is not debate. And I would just ask anyone on the board if you would like to do that, as well as I suppose the city can speak up on this. But is there any question? Are there any questions from the board?
Yes, I think the mayor already called on me. Thank you. I do have two questions for clarity, and this may be coming out with information tomorrow, but I am interested in the calculation of the 1 million being spent in Lake Stevens versus the 1.4 million leaving. And I'm wondering if, particularly if that counts electronic resources, which would not be physical presence. I'm also wondering who, like the number of subscribers that's based on, but I'm sure that will be provided, or maybe that won't be provided in the materials tomorrow.
So Helen, what I'm going to give you is the raw materials that I took, and then I had to create my own extrapolation out of them. And so I would be interested to see if you got the same numbers.
Super. Okay. I'm happy to look into that. And then my second question is how much the city has raised so far for the Civic Center.
But the city that hasn't raised any money for the Civic Center yet.
Okay. Thank you.
I can't quite see everybody, so if there's a hand raised.
Yeah, I don't, just speak up. If you're a board member, you can speak up. Or I suppose that, Mary, are you making a signal there? Mary Dickinson? No, maybe not. Okay. Oh, she is. Okay. Well, Mary, I suppose that since this is a city report, by all means, a point of clarity, if you will.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you to the mayor for explaining that. I understand that we don't want to waste the money. That's not our money, is it? It belongs to the people, and I get that. I think my experience with the library, which, like I said, Lake Stevens people love the library, is they don't come They go down to Snohomish or they go to Marysville, but they still live in Lake Stevens. So I'm pretty sure the money that's utilized to serve them is going back to Lake Stevens. It's just hard to track all that. And I do think that's one of the factors. I just really want us all to work together for the best part of the community. That's all. I'm just going to keep saying that. You'll hear it again. But I appreciate everything that you've done. And I really, really love the work that we've done with Stowe developers. Just an amazing design. I just want that to happen. Okay, I'm done.
Any other questions from the board members?
Yeah, I think Candace has a question. Candace, you want to go ahead?
And I'm sorry, I missed a little bit of the discussion at the beginning there, but I'm wondering if the 1 million includes costs for electronic resources and those kinds of things that, are not physical things and easy to track, those kinds of services that we receive from Snow Isle. That's my question.
So great question, Candace. So from what I could extrapolate out of what was given to me, yes, it does.
Can I follow up and ask what categories are included there?
Let me pull it up real quick. And please forgive my voice. I'm a little under the weather today.
I think this might be helpful. Chai has his hand raised. Mr. Mayor, if you will allow to speak, go ahead, Chai.
I don't want to jump ahead of you, Mayor, if you were going to offer something.
Well, I was looking for what you titled the those different markups that you sent me.
Yeah. I think that if these attempts to represent expenditures for a 2-county-wide district for just a municipality is something the board would like to get into detail on. I think that that's something that does take a bit of time. It's something I'd be happy to do. I've been offering since this request was made to meet with folks and explain those numbers more. No one's taken me up on that yet, so I'd love to barring my meetings with the mayor. Sorry, Mayor, that wasn't meant to be to include you, but would be happy to have those conversations. I will say that our numbers are pretty different from what the mayor's presenting tonight. I think there's some difference in interpretation there, and a couple of these questions are spot on to the things that are difficult to represent when you try to divide costs up this way. A large digital collection of ebooks that's always available to all residents of Lake Stevens is pretty hard to divide up and get really specific about what that value is to an individual Lake Stevens taxpayer. But we did make an attempt at it, and based on our attempt, that number for running the Lake Stevens Library is well more than $1 million. All
right. I have a question actually that I would like to ask. Question of clarity. You say that you think that could be that what costs the city, you would know this number of $2.4 million. So that should be an accurate number of what's going out for Snow Isle because of the levy, the amount of the levy. What we don't know is necessarily what the value of that is back. And let's leave that on the side for now. Do you have any thought that comparable service could actually be done at that $1 million price? Because that's a question I think people might wonder. As you're saying, well, fine, Snow Isle is charging $2.4 million for their full services, 2 counties wide, the whole thing. Is there something that's comparable that does exist that can be brought in at $1 million? Do you have any idea that that's actually possible?
Yeah, good question, Abe. And just to clarify, so my numbers of 2.4 are based upon the current city's valuation, assessed property valuation of $6 billion. And And I know that Chai's numbers are at 2.2 million. So there's a little difference in there. And to answer your question, Abe, yes, I've already been told by another group, and yes, it is a private group, that they could provide the same services and a little bit more for $900,000 a year on a 10-year contract.
Okay, thank you.
And also just to clarify, Abe, Chai and I have talked about these numbers. I know Chai was clarifying. I just want to make sure everyone know that we have talked about this.
Okay. Chai, you have a hand raised again, and I see no reason why we can't hear from you again, please.
Yeah, just a point of clarity that the 2022 levy rate is 39 cents, not 42. 42 was last year's. That could be why the number's coming out different. The numbers that we sent to you, Mayor, are the actual revenues from our balance sheets.
Right.
Of course, at the time, it wasn't the end of 2021 yet, so there was a little bit of a forecast in there, but not much. So to have an accurate number for now, it would need to be 39 cents per thousand. That's the 22 levy rate.
Okay.
And so people understand that's because of the increased value of homes, or why does that happen?
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we're capped at it's.
Yeah.
I will refrain from the long explanation, but essentially, as a library district, we're most often capped at collecting 1% more revenue than we did the previous year, because property values in our region go up by more than 1% in a year. That pulls the levy rate down each year. So as you can see, it was a larger number this year than it is sometimes, but it will be 39 cents per thousand in 2022.
Okay. Okay. Good. That's a good point of clarity. We thank you for that. Any other questions for the mayor?
I was wondering if the mayor could share the name of the company that he got the quote from.
The company I received a quote from was Library Systems and Services. They run about 85 libraries across the country.
Okay.
And just for clarification, I'm not sold on Library Systems and Services. If we went out for an RFP to control our costs and Snow Isle wanted in on it, I would love that.
And are they a Washington-based company?
They're a nationwide company. They don't have anybody in Washington yet. Quite a few in California and several back east.
All right. Anybody else have questions for the mayor? No? Okay. Well, then we have heard presentations from Snow Isle and from the city, and we have allowed for questions of clarification. Before I ask for a motion to discuss these issues, I just want to remind the members of the board, I made a point of sending out our bylaws and such a couple of weeks ago, because I just want the members to understand why we serve, how we serve in an advisory role. We don't vote on library budgets. Thank God, I guess. Well, we don't vote to approve library programming, and we don't have any say on who serves as leaders within the library system. Ultimately, we serve the citizens of Lake Stevens by providing advice to the council and the mayor. That's the way it was set up. That's what we do. The decision makers are the voters, and then their elected representatives that obviously represent them. So with that in mind, is there a motion that we can take so that we can discuss and perhaps debate any next steps?
I make a motion that Snow Isle prepare a more in-depth budget briefing for us to fully understand the value for money that we are receiving as part of the Snow Isle system.
All right. So Helen has made a motion that Snow Isle provide a more in-depth report so that we can understand more fully the costs. Am I saying that correct, Helen?
I said value for money specifically because cost is not always a good determinant of whether or not we should do something.
Okay.
So
That's good.
I'm using deliberate language taken from my field, which is international development. So I apologize.
That is wonderful. Value for money is fine with me. All right. So there is a motion on the floor. Would we like to have any discussion on that, on this motion? I'm not sure exactly what else we would have there. Part of it would depend upon what the mayor is able to share. And I think he's, what he's going to share is what I assume was prepared for him by Snow Isle. But nevertheless, is there any other discussion on that? All right, being no discussion on that, I think we can take a vote to ask for on this motion. I should be re-saying it, but unfortunately, Helen, could you please restate it for the folks so they know what they're voting on? Please restate that.
Sure. I move that we request Snow Isle to prepare a more in-depth briefing for us regarding the budget so we understand the value for money of being part of the Snow Isle system.
All right, you heard the motion. All those in favor of that motion, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. It looks like we are unanimous in that. There you go. So the vote being unanimous, the motion carries, and we will ask this of Snow Isle. Chai, I get an idea that you just heard that, so we don't necessarily have to communicate that through other means, but we will make it official to you in meeting minutes and such. All right. I have one other motion that I would like to make then. Because of where we're at, I make a motion that we ask the mayor and the city council to allow the citizens of Lake Stevens to vote on best options for providing library services for the city, paying special attention to the provision of a new building. Now, we don't need to have that last part on it. And again, we can discuss this, but what I'm asking for is we ask the mayor and city council to allow the citizens of Lake Stevens to vote on the best options for providing library services for the city. Let's lay out the facts. Let the citizens vote. Is there any discussion on that motion? Anybody have problems with? Okay, Shaylin, go right ahead.
I understand our mandate that we need to represent the citizens here. So I appreciate that motion, but I don't feel like I can. I don't feel like I can vote on that a yes or a no until I have more specific and exact, as exact as they can get, or as comfortable as they feel numbers from both the Snow Isle and the city. I want to make sure that all the numbers are true to fact, and that Snow Isle gets a chance to give us their information also. So at this time, I don't feel like I have enough information to do justice to a vote that would, represent the people. So I don't know how long getting that information in more finite detail from Snow Isle will take, and then maybe cleaning up some of the numbers from the or if the city is comfortable with what they have so far, what they presented, so be it. But I don't know how long that would take to get from Snow Isle, and if maybe we're going to need another meeting at some point before our April one to consider these. But
okay.
I'd like to lead with that.
That's a valid concern. Anybody else? Anybody want to talk about that? Okay. For my own part, I think that actually is very valid. One of the things that I would follow up with, and you would just need to know that I, as chair, could call a special meeting at some time if we decide, if we get the information both from Snow Isle and from the city, and we hash a few more things out. This has been something that I've been thinking about. I can call a special meeting and we can do it. I will only do it with after advice from you. I'll check with everybody on the board. It will be public. We will not have all the presentations. We will not do the first part with the bylaws and everything else. It'll be strictly a special meeting on that there. Kelly, I see you popping in. Do you have anything to say with regard to scheduling a special meeting?
No, I do not. I'm happy to assist whenever you guys decide that you want to do that. Did you have a motion on the floor though, Abe? And are you going to withdraw that motion or are you going to proceed?
No, let's vote on it. We need to pursue it. And not being any other discussion, I think it's worth a vote. So the motion on the floor is the one that I put out there. We ask the mayor and city council to allow the citizens of Lake Stevens to vote on the best options for providing library services for the city, paying special attention to the provision of a new building. So this would put them to where they move forward with a vote of some sort, or at least prepare for a vote. That's all we're saying. I'm not asking for it.
And you'll need a second.
And I would need a second on this. Anybody would like to make a second? It appears not. Okay, so that being the case, I withdraw the motion, and we're good with that. That will require then that we have a special meeting. So be looking for that in the days to come. I suspect that we will want to do that within the next 30 days, but I'll check with you and with each of you to see what your availability is. My guess is that Thursdays at 4:30 would be the best again. So I'll try to, just looking at Valentine's Day and what happens there, and it's not on a Thursday. Thank you. Okay, that being the case,
Can I just make one more comment as you talked about setting the meeting date, and I think that's fine. Just remembering, please, to not have these conversations regarding library board business over email with a quorum of you. It's a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act for all meetings to be in public and business to be done here in these meetings. So I'm sorry that I'm jumping in there a couple of times just to remind us of that, but I think it's important. So just if Abe reaches out about a meeting date, please do not start talking about business, unless it's done in this room. So
there we go.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, and wonderful point of order. All right, well, we're already at 6 o'clock. We have board comments that are left here, and I do want to allow for that. So this is one of the things where if you have any comments, I won't call on each of you. I was going to do that, but let's not bother. I'll just let you, if you have any comments before we close, please feel free to say something at this time.
I have a point of inquiry and or clarification related to something that Councilwoman Dickinson said earlier. And I am just going to relay my understanding of the STOW process and the options, and others on this call can correct me if I'm wrong. But she mentioned a hybrid option, which I believe was option 4. Yes, which technically the community never voted on. My understanding is that the community voted on options 1 through 3, with 3 being the overwhelming favorite by hundreds, which designated 2 separate buildings, a city council and a library. So from the point of view of the citizens of Lake Stevens, that was their preference. And the hybrid is actually not a reflection necessarily of the citizens of Lake Stevens. My understanding is that was a request from the city council to go back to Stowe and ask again for a hybrid option. So I just want to clarify if that is indeed the case.
Mayor, do you want?
I see the councilwoman nodding yes.
Chai, you had spoken. Yeah, please, Chai, you have your hand raised. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Helen, I think it's a good question. I think I would characterize that hybrid option as, or that hybrid concept as the developers and the architects attempting to take the biggest themes they identified in the input that they got from the community rather than treat it as a hard vote on go with one or the other. And for example, that's why you will see that they are separate buildings in that hybrid version. They did also incorporate strong input from the city council. I think it's also fair to say that the step of taking that back to the community for further engagement and input has not happened yet. That's a part of what we would be looking forward to doing this year.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right. Any other board comments? Anything you want to say? I'm not going to call on you, like I said, because you could just as easily say no. So we're okay. All right. I will close with just one. Oh, I'm sorry. Shaylin. Yes, please. No?
Not Shaylin, Lynn. I see Lynn, so I was
I'm sorry.
calling out Lynn.
Okay, please, Lynn. I didn't see. Oh, yeah, I see why it was. Okay, please, Lynn, go right ahead. I don't hear you though.
Oh, am I on now?
Yep, there you go.
Okay. I just want to say that I'm really flabbergasted at this whole process that the mayor is proposing. And hasn't somebody looked at these numbers prior to this? I mean, we've been doing this for several years. And it breaks my heart that all the time that we've spent to get a library to then to have this proposal to pull away from Snow Isle. And you might ask every library, they pulled away from Snow Isle several years ago, how they're doing with theirs. Anyway, I'm disappointed. Leave it at that. I'm moving, so thank goodness.
Okay. I appreciate that. Anybody else want to have anything to say at this point in time?
I'll just say that I just took a moment to look at Wikipedia today for all the cities listed in Snohomish County and check to see what their population was. There's about 20 cities and how many of them had libraries. 17 of those communities are served by Snow Isle libraries. City of Everett has their own public library, plus they have the Mariner Library that is managed by Snow Isle. And 3 cities have no library. So I think a lot more discussion would have to happen before choosing a totally different system than we've had. I think our Snow Isle management has been excellent. So I'd have to hear a lot more about that.
All right. Well, that's good. I think that, okay, well, no, I'm sorry. Let me open it up once again. Anybody else have comments, board? Anybody want to say anything? Going once, going twice? No? Okay. All right. All right. In closing, I just want to say I appreciate everybody. You've been wonderful. This first go round for me and being the chair. Thank you very much for that. I will say one order of business that didn't get covered from our last meeting. Mayor, you may have to, no, I see Russ Wright is still around. Russ, Shaylin had shared a concern to pass along to her by someone at the Lake Stevens School District that there is no crosswalk on the grade road thanks to the new library location. You said you would look into that. I'm not expecting you to speak up now, but I do want to put that bug in your ear to say that there are people concerned about a crosswalk and we would love to have that. So I don't know what legally can be done, but please know that that is still on the agenda. So if you want to speak to that, Russ, you.
Happy to speak to that. So I took that issue to our city engineer who's done a couple of small looks at it. It's not part of our capital program for this year. It is part of a long-term capital program to do improvements on Grade Road, but probably this year we wouldn't see that change. The simple change of adding a crosswalk wouldn't be that simple. It would require pretty significant regrading of the hillside going up there and addition of walls and lots of other things to get appropriate ADA grades and everything. So no capital project in place this year.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Well, I will say this as my own comment is that I would really like for voters to be able to speak to this. That's my goal. And as they do, my encouragement to anyone who would ask would just be that they prioritize quality of service, cost effectiveness, and I know that may not be the right word in the Helen, you value for money, however you like to say that, but quality of service, value for money, let's say, and local accountability, and that's a huge one for me. And so those are the things that I would like to see as we go forward. I think with that, if there are no other pieces of business, we can adjourn. I will do this officially and say that we can adjourn at 6:08. Would we have a motion to adjourn? Who would like to?
I motion to adjourn.
I'm sorry, who was that did that?
Leanne.
Oh, Leanne. Okay, and who would second it?
I second it.
All right, Helen, there we go. All right, and all in favor of adjourning, say aye. Yes, it's
Aye.
Hi.
all right. Well, thank you so much for this evening, and I will be in touch about a follow-up special meeting. Thank you very much again.
Thanks, Abe. Well done.